would like to call to order the City of Southport Board of Aldermen regular meeting for May 13th, 2021. I want to thank you all for being here. We have a busy agenda, but we also have a beautiful agenda tonight in terms of the proclamations and the city employee that we're honoring tonight as well. So I would like to call on for our invocation, Reverend Stuart Milton. He's a pastor at Trinity Methodist Church here in Southport. This will be followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. All rise who would like to join. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Pastor Milton, and we appreciate the prayers, and we know that you pray for not only your church, but also for our city every day, and we thank you for that. Item D on our agenda is public comment. Madam Clerk, do we have anyone to speak in public comment?
No, sir, there was no one signed up.
Okay. Anyone here that would like to speak in public comment? Okay, thank you. Item E, approval of the agenda. And we'll approve the agenda as amended on item 1, NCDOT presentation update. They could not make it this evening, so we'll remove that, and they will reschedule for June. So I'll entertain a motion. Motion by Mr. Allen, second by Mr. Lombardi. Any discussion? All in favor? Okay, motion carried. Thank you. Our ethics statement. If any members know of any conflict of interest or the appearance of a conflict of interest concerning matters on the agenda, please so state at this time. Yes, Madam Alderman. Yes, with your microphone. I'm sorry, Madam Alderman.
Repeat that. Yes? Okay. I'm asking the city attorney if it's acceptable for me to recuse myself because the nominee for Board of Adjustment is a member of my family, so I would like to be recused from voting.
Technically, it's probably not a legal conflict that would require that, but the board certainly, if she's asked to do it, can recuse her if you would like, if somebody would make that motion.
I'll make a motion that we recuse Alderman Davis from voting on the appointee to the Board of Adjustment.
Pro Tem, motion by Mr. Allen. Any further discussion? All in favor? Okay, motion carried. Thank you. Thank you, Alderman Davis. Item F is the approval of the consent agenda, and I will review this briefly for those watching and for those here. You have your minutes in the packet, the regular Board of Aldermen meeting on April 8th, and then the special Board of Aldermen budget workshops, April 22nd and 28th. Item 4 is amending a section of the Code of Ordinance for the Animal Protection Services. And basically what this does is expands the ordinance in terms of not only dogs but cats can be declared a public nuisance, and citations can be issued for cats as well. This is for the protection of not only the animal but also of our citizens. Item 5 on the consent is the resolution authorizing the City of Southport to donate a 1986 model 55-foot ladder to Brunswick County for use by Sunset Harbor Fire Department. This is a surplus truck for the city and is being donated as is. Item 6 is a resolution in opposition of House Bill 496, and I would like to just read part of that. And you'll see this is an important resolution for our city. It says, whereas the North Carolina General Assembly is considering House Bill 496 entitled, An Act Providing that Counties and Cities shall not adopt ordinances regulating the removal of trees from private property without the express authorization of the General Assembly. And whereas the proposed legislation would require all local governments to obtain special authorization from the General Assembly prior to enacting a tree protection ordinance, and void all existing ordinances protecting existing trees that were established without special authority. I mean, we can stop right there and not even read any further. I mean, Southport just celebrated Arbor Day. It was a beautiful event. We are a tree city, so I don't think that there's any controversy here in opposition to that bill. Item 7 is a resolution in opposition of SB 349 and HB 401. And these bills would take away zoning authority for local governments. And again, I will just be brief so everyone can see. Basically, it says, whereas the proposed legislation would disempower local governments from making land use decisions. So that would take away the zoning authority from local governments. And whereas the proposed legislation would diminish the protections available to property owners and residents when incompatible uses are proposed adjacent to their properties and homes. So someone could put up a duplex or triplex in an area that would not be zoned for that. So that is item 7 in terms of the resolution in opposition. Item 8 is Budget Amendment 10. And what that does is we're moving an excess amount of money to the capital project funds. It's in the amount of $1.2 million. This extra money is due to the conservative estimate of anticipated decrease in revenue for this fiscal year, which we did not see, fortunately. So this money is going to be moved to capital funds. So I will entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda. Mr. Lombardi, a second. Second by Alderman Sharkey. Any discussion? Okay. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Item G, special recognition. We have 7. I know that seems like a lot, but May is a special month for many reasons. and we have very compelling anniversaries, and that we should recognize and celebrate. Excuse me. I'll need to take that with me. Okay, the first proclamation is on behalf of the Coast Guard, and it's a proclamation in support of National Safe Boating Week. And we have with us former flotilla commander of the Coast Guard, Jack Gordon. Mr. Gordon, if you would stand up and stand with me on this. If we go, thank you. First of all, it's extremely sad and ironic that we read this proclamation because, as many of you know, there was the drowning in the Intercoastal Waterway on Sunday. Two brothers, Johnny Magby and his older brother, Akeem Jones. Mr. Jones fell in, and his brother, who was a high school student at West Brunswick, went in after him, and neither one survived. And it reminds you of what we learned in scouting, and probably in the Coast Guard too, is that you reach, throw, row, and then go is the last thing. And we mourn the loss of these young men, and I appreciate the Coast Guard bringing this to our attention in terms of safe boating. Whereas on average, 600 people die each year in boating-related accidents in the United States, 79% of these are fatalities caused by drowning. And whereas the vast majority of these accidents are caused by human error or poor judgment and not by the boat, equipment, or environmental factors. And whereas a significant number of boaters who lose their lives by drowning each year would be alive today had they worn their life jackets. Whereas Southport is located where the Cape Fear River and the Atlantic Ocean meet and is steeped in maritime history. Therefore, I, Joseph B. Hatem, Mayor of the City of Southport, do hereby support the goals of the Safe Boating Campaign and proclaim May 22nd through May 28, 2021 as National Safe Boating Week and the start of the year-round effort to promote safe boating. In witness thereof, we urge all those who boat to institute proactive safe boating habits and wear a life jacket at all times while boating. Dated this 13th day of May, 2021. Our next proclamation, and this is something you look forward to, but also you sort of dread because a wonderful employee is leaving, starting a different chapter in their life. So this is the proclamation and appreciation for dedicated service. Where's Mr. Fox? Please come up. And if Mr. Fox was not in public services, he has the greatest radio voice. So I think with that deep voice, you have another career waiting for you. So, anyway, it's been a pleasure to work with you, even though briefly. Whereas David Fox began his career with the City of Southport in November 2004 and served as the Utility Operation Supervisor. And whereas Mr. Fox was promoted to Director of Public Services in 2011, and whereas these many years have been marked by exemplary dedication to the best interests of the community and the improvement of the City of Southport public works system. And whereas Mr. Fox has accomplished many certifications, including Grade 4 collection, NC Grade 2 wastewater treatment plant operator, B water distribution, and certified flagging instructor for North and South Carolina. Whereas the City of Southport has benefited greatly from David's leadership, particularly through Phase 1 and Phase 2 reversal projects with the Southeast Brunswick Sanitary District and closing the wastewater treatment plant in 2012. Whereas on behalf of the City of Southport, I want to express our sincere appreciation to David Fox for his dedication and hard work over the past 16 years and want to wish him much happiness as he begins this new adventure in life. Proclaimed 13th of May, 2021. And if we could have the board come up, we'll get a picture. To call on Chief Coring in our police department, if they would come forward. Thank you. Beautiful. And Chief, if you would introduce your officers.
Yes, sir. This is Patrolman Peterson, Patrolman Jeffrey, Sergeant Moore, Detective Burgess, Officer Riley, Officer Maines, Riley Ransom. I'm just used to calling him Riley all this time. So Officer Maines, Wade, Officer Wade, Major Burke, Crummis, Patrolman Crummis, and Officer Stokes. And we have Sergeant Lee Wigmore, who is out of town, and we have Patrolman Tim Shaw, who has been activated with the National Guard, so we want to remember them.
Thank you, Chief. It's an honor to have your men here, and it's an honor for me to read this proclamation. Proclamation in support of National Police Week, May 9th through 15th, 2021. Whereas there are approximately 900,000 law enforcement officers serving in communities across the United States, including the dedicated members of the City of Southport's Police Department. And whereas law enforcement officers routinely put their health and safety on the line to help others. And whereas the first recorded law enforcement death in 1786, almost 22,000 law enforcement officers have been killed in the line of duty. Whereas an average of 176 law enforcement officers are killed each year in the line of duty. And whereas in 2020, the number of law enforcement deaths increased to 306. Whereas North Carolina experienced 10 law enforcement deaths in 2020. Whereas the names of these dedicated public servants are engraved on the walls of the National Law Enforcement Officers Memorial in Washington, D.C. And whereas May 15, 2021 is Peace Officers Memorial Day. Whereas the Southport Police Department continues a tradition of excellence and integrity in law enforcement and embodies neighborly, approachable policing. Whereas the Southport Police Department faces an influx of thousands of tourists 4 months out of the year, they accept the challenge with a gracious determination and ready presence to keep our citizens and our city safe, whether on patrol, on bicycles, or walking our streets. And now therefore let it be resolved that the City of Southport formally designates May 9th through 15th, 2021 as National Police Week in Southport, North Carolina, and publicly salutes the service of law enforcement officers in our community and across the nation. 13th day of May, 2021. Joseph P. Hayden, MD, Mayor. Let's get a picture with you there. We are so blessed to have that group of men protecting our city and working for the city of Southport. I'm just very grateful for them, as I know all of you are, especially the board. Next is something also dear to my heart, Proclamation of National Nurses Week. And we have the Director of Nursing and someone I work with very closely at the hospital, Lisa Anderson. And I'm grateful for you to be here to represent the nurses from the hospital. Proclamation in support of National Nurses Week, May 6th through 12th, 2021. Whereas the over 4 million registered nurses in the United States constitute our nation's largest healthcare profession, and whereas the nursing profession plays a critical role in improving patient outcomes, increasing access, coordinating care, and reducing healthcare costs. And whereas the depth and scope of the registered nursing profession meet the different and emerging healthcare needs of the American population in a wide variety of settings. And whereas during the COVID-19 pandemic, nurses in Southport and all over the United States played a vital role in education, patient care, and vaccine administration. And whereas more qualified registered nurses will be needed in the future to meet the increasingly complex needs of healthcare consumers in this community. And whereas along with the American Nurses Association, the Mayor of the City of Southport has declared the week of May 6th through 12th as National Nurse Week. Whereas the nurses of Dr. J. Arthur Dozier Memorial Hospital continue a tradition of healing and caring to all who enter her doors for over 90 years. And whereas the nurses of Dozier Memorial Hospital performed exemplary in the face of the COVID-19 pandemic with courage and unyielding determination in caring for COVID-19 patients in the emergency department or on the patient care unit, always at risk of contracting the disease. Whereas the nurses of Dozier Memorial Hospital follow in the footsteps of registered nurses in the old Dozier Hospital who exemplified excellence in nursing and were well known to the citizens of Southport. Marie Brown, RN, Director of Nursing for many years, and set the standard for nursing directors. Vera Howard, RN, a nurse for many years and Director of Nursing from 1968 until retirement in 1971. And Julia Daniel, RN, head nurse in the emergency department for many years and known as Miss Julia to Southport natives. Now, therefore, let it be resolved that the City of Southport Board of Aldermen and the residents join in honoring the registered nurses who care for all of us. And be it further resolved that the City of Southport Board of Aldermen and the residents show our appreciation for registered nurses, not only during this week, but at every opportunity throughout the year. Signed this 13th day of May, 2021, Joseph P. Hayden, M.D., Mayor, City of Southport. And thank you for all that y'all do. Lisa and I and a group of doctors, we meet once a month, and what we do, it's the Quality Care Committee, which she is the lead on that committee, and that's her department at the hospital, and I'm just so proud of what she does with that. And what we do, we look at not what went well, but what did not go as well, or what we can do to be better doctors and nurses. And so I just want you to know that we don't rest on our laurels. We're a great hospital, but we just appreciate all that the nurses do. Next is, again, something dear to all of us. City of Southport Proclamation and Appreciation of the Military. Whereas May is designed as National Military Appreciation Month and a time to remember and appreciate the men and women who have and are currently serving in the United States Armed Forces. Whereas our military continues to play a vital role in the global war on terror and disaster relief missions to secure our freedoms. Whereas the sacrifices made by these individuals have helped to preserve the liberties that have enriched this nation. Whereas community members, businesses, military bases, and other organizations are encouraged to recognize military members and their loved ones with special recognition during the month of May. And whereas between 2006 and 2020, approximately 17,700 active duty military personnel were killed while serving their country, proving that freedom is not free. And therefore, I, Mayor Joseph P. Hayden, do hereby proclaim May 2021 as Military Appreciation Month and officially recognize the many sacrifices made by our veterans, service members, wounded warriors, their families, and their survivors. This 13th day of May 2021. So we salute our military and all that they do. The next one is the proclamation to celebrate the anniversary of the American Red Cross. This is something that is special to the world, but also special to Southport, and you'll see as I read this proclamation. Whereas Clara Barton, known as the Angel of the Battlefield, as nurse and relief worker, assisting the wounded and delivering supplies during the Civil War, founded the American Red Cross on May 21st, 1881. Whereas the American Red Cross is a humanitarian organization for the prevention and alleviation of human suffering, provides disaster relief, including most notably in the Southport area from hurricanes, provides blood donations, training, and certifications for people all over the United States. And whereas 90% of the Red Cross workforce is volunteers, and whereas the Red Cross responds to an average of 60,000 disasters a year, and whereas every 8 minutes the Red Cross responds to a disaster, and whereas the Red Cross has served alongside deployed military for 135 years, and whereas the Red Cross has assisted more than 1 million military families since September 11th, 2001. Whereas at the beginning of World War II, a Red Cross emergency training course was established in Southport, and I quote, for volunteer housewives in the care of the sick. This training proved crucial when in the early morning of March 13, 1942, the tanker USS John D. Gill, with a cargo of 141,981 barrels of crude oil and a crew of 49, was torpedoed by a German U-boat off the coast of Southport. There were 23 dead and 26 survivors, including from the headline of the Wilmington Morning Star, March 16, 1942, and I quote, 11 oil-stained and flame-seared survivors of tanker sunk off coast tell gripping story of fight for life, end of quote. And the subheading, and I quote, war-wrecked crew members under treatment at hospital in Southport. Whereas the Red Cross training these women received helped to care for and save the lives of these 11 sailors, as they not only cared for the injured, they also grieved for the dead. And whereas the American Red Cross in the city of Southport and those volunteers will be forever remembered in this historic and tragic event when World War came to our coast. Now, therefore, I, Joseph B. Hayden, MD, Mayor of the city of Southport, do hereby celebrate the 140th anniversary of the American Red Cross. On behalf of the City of Southport Board of Aldermen and all our citizens, I express our gratitude to the American Red Cross volunteers and supporters for their unselfish dedication to the health and welfare of people everywhere. Signed this 13th day of May, 2021. Next year will be the 80th anniversary of this event, and one of the women that was one of the housewives, that is a quote from a letter that a woman wrote to the state port pilot about this event. That was Tish's grandmother, Josephine Hickman. So this is something that is embodied in the history of Southport, and it is a privilege and honor for me to read this to you this evening. Our last proclamation really needs no introduction. Is the National Hurricane Preparedness Week, and we put this in there to let our citizens know that we are prepared, and we will be prepared just like we were last year. Whereas National Hurricane Preparedness Week is May 9th through May 15th, 2021, and whereas in the past few years, catastrophic hurricanes have had a devastating effect on the coast of North Carolina and neighboring states, and whereas as hurricanes pose a serious threat to North Carolina by producing heavy rains, inland flooding, devastating winds, and tornadoes, and whereas hurricanes are most likely to occur between June 1st and November 30th, and whereas Hurricane Florence made landfall in Southport on September 14th, 2018 as a Category 1 storm, but lingered for days, causing unprecedented flooding. And whereas Hurricane Dorian made landfall on the southern coast of North Carolina as a Category 2 on September 5th, 2019. And whereas Hurricane I made landfall as a Category 1 on August 3rd, 2020, causing damage to the city dock and marina area, creating a pile of boats at the Southport Marina and surrounding neighborhood. And whereas Southport has a long history of hurricane damage and perseverance, and whereas it is important that all North Carolinians be aware of the dangers they present, particularly to coastal regions, and whereas we must remain vigilant and plan and prepare to lessen the loss of life and minimize property damage. Whereas the National Weather Service and the North Carolina Department of Public Safety have joined together urging all citizens to prepare for hurricanes and to educate themselves on hurricane preparedness and safety strategies. Therefore, in recognition of this national event, I, Joseph B. Hayden, Mayor, do hereby proclaim May 9th through 15th, 2021, National Hurricane Preparedness Week for the city of Southport. So we will be ready. I will ask the city manager if we will have a very brief meeting in the EOC this month, just for everyone to sit down and make sure that we're ready for the June 1st kickoff, unfortunately, of hurricane season. H, the agenda, item 2, the public hearing on the annexation of 1136 Delaware Street. This was petitioned for a voluntary non-contiguous annexation. It was discussed at our last meeting. So I hereby open the public hearing for annexation of 1136 Delaware Street, and I call on Development Services Director Thomas Lloyd. Mr. Lloyd.
Yeah, so I'll go into the specifics on this just a little bit, just so folks joining us at home can kind of understand what we're deciding on tonight. So this is a non-contiguous voluntary annexation at 1136 Delaware Street, as the mayor described. The city clerk has investigated the sufficiency of the request. She did determine that it was sufficient. The folks here are trying to annex so that they can get access to city water and sewer service. If they are annexed into the city, they will be able to tap in with the service connection, because there is a manhole right there on Delaware. The parcel is also in the ETJ, so there is no rezoning required. So if there's any questions, I'm happy to answer them. And just let me know.
For Mr. Lloyd.
Thomas, does this involve accepting a road, or I know we've had that come up before?
It does not. Delaware is a private access driveway. It is not a road. There are no street lights either. We would not have to put any type of infrastructure in there other than just allowing them service to our water and sewer.
Any other questions? Any public comment at this public hearing? Any public comment on this annexation? Okay. All right. Hearing none, I'll take us out of the public hearing, and we'll close the public hearing. And I will entertain a motion concerning annexation. Motion by Madam Alderman Davis. Is there a second? Second by Mr. Lombardi. Any further discussion on the annexation of 1136 Delaware Street? Okay. Not the street, but the property on Delaware Street. All in favor? Any opposed? Okay. Motion carried. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Lloyd. The next item is item 3. This will be a public hearing text amendment. It's on the General Statute 160D updates to the Unified Development Ordinance. Anytime that we have the combination of Mr. Lloyd and from the Cape Fear Council of Government, Wes McLeod, I know we're getting good information, and so I will call on Mr. Lloyd for this as well. and I'll hereby open the public hearing.
Yes, and I want to introduce Sam Shore with the Cape Fear Council of Governments as well. He is their new planner, and Wes had a prior engagement, and he wasn't able to make it tonight. But Sam will be here with me to assist in answering any questions if everybody has any. So I'll run through this real quick. So this is the 160D update, and the majority of this is a change to, it's just a proposed draft of required statutory updates to the city's UDO. NCGS 160D consolidates, reorganizes, and modernizes the state's planning and development regulations. So previously there were two different chapters for planning and development, one for county, one for municipalities, and this has codified them into a single unified chapter. There's not significant policy changes for the scope of authority for local governments, but there are a lot of clarifications that this chapter has enabled us to do. We have until July 1st to adopt these amendments and to conform our development regulations with 160D. So the Planning Board reviewed these changes at their April 15th meeting, and they voted to recommend approval of the zoning text amendment. There were also some other things that we needed to clarify that weren't related to 160D that we also did with this update. But staff recommends that this amendment be approved as well, and I and Sam are happy to answer any questions that you all might have about it.
Yeah, Tom, I have a question. One of the changes was the 80% completion of a development before the final road was paved. And I was a little disappointed in that. We did talk, and you did explain why. However, I'd like to see some other wording in there that enables us to have one road finished for final inspection, that there's no patches, and because patches don't hold up. And I'd like to see us mill these areas that are destroyed, if any. Maybe the road will be in great shape after the houses are built, but most likely they won't, to have these sections milled and then repaved. Can we do something like that?
So it's kind of a difficult thing to balance, because the reason we had to remove the section that Alderman Lombardi is referencing, it's 4.8, I believe, what is it, 4.8B4? Go back. 4.8C4, excuse me, I misspoke there. So the reason we had to take that 80% out there is because in 4.7, which goes into our installation of improvements, it requires all improvements to be installed prior to final plat approval. So we got to have that 1.5 inch of final surface course to be applied to all streets prior to being able to approve the final plat. And part of the reason it has to be done this way is because we don't allow performance guarantees anymore in this ordinance. So in the past, when there were performance guarantees, what we could have done is put a performance guarantee on the final course of asphalt. The problem that you run into with that is sometimes you get a performance guarantee, maybe the developer goes belly up, the bond goes bad, and then ultimately the HOA gets left, with streets that aren't finished and are in poor condition. So I certainly understand where you're coming from the patching standpoint, and how that can make it difficult, moving forward after everything's already done if there's multiple patches in the street. I know that in our general code, we do have a provision that, allows us to hold people accountable for fixing roads. Some of that might just be us trying to figure out, what would be our technical standards for making people mill it and make sure the entire road is completely smooth. Sam, do you have any ideas or anything to add?
Thank you, Thomas, and thank you, Mr. Mayor and Aldermen. What Thomas said is correct. The general mechanism by which this could be accomplished is a performance guarantee. It used to be in North Carolina that you could also require what's called a defects guarantee, which is that, it used to be in North Carolina that you could also require a defects guarantee that once the improvements were installed, you could, for a certain period of time, require the developer to put up a certain amount of money to address any defects that occurred. But as part of 160D and even prior to that other legislation, the General Assembly removed the ability of local governments to require a defects guarantee.
So we're saying that we can't put any other wording in there that would guarantee a smooth finish?
Unfortunately, just by nature of the lack of a performance guarantee option and the requirement that the roads be turned over at the time of final plat, this is the way to make sure that the entire ordinance is it doesn't conflict with itself.
And there's no final inspection when everything is said and done?
There's the roads and the infrastructure, it would be done at the time that final plat is signed. So the inspection is done at the time that final plat is signed.
I don't know. That sounds not right to me, but anyway. I thought we could put some wording in there that what we require if the road does fail. So if it fails, now who's responsible for it?
Well, if the city accepted it, it would be
The city's responsibility. That's what I was trying to avoid by doing that 80%.
Thomas, would there be a way, I know when a house gets built, if they tear up the sidewalk or they tear up the road, would there be a way to sort of back into this with some kind of policy and some kind of inspection checklist for the building inspector before you get your CO, then if this, thus, and so?
That's exactly how it would be done.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and so if you can create that and sort of achieve Tom's goal with the specifications for it?
Well, we can if it's like an individual stretch of road, but having them repave the entire stretch, we can't necessarily do that. I mean, we could for how they fix whatever needs to be patched in terms of, a policy and technical standards on how they would have to do that, but we can't make them redo the whole road if the whole road's not messed up, essentially.
Can say that to fix an area that was destroyed, settled, whatever, we can specify milling.
Sure, if we had that adopted as part of a, some type of technical standards document for maintaining and fixing those types of things, I think we could probably do that.
Yeah, I think we should do that.
I just want to be sure I'm clear on this. So the General Assembly, our state legislature, has taken the city's authority to have to ensure that infrastructure is acceptable and done right.
They did away with warranty bonds, which is what Sam was mentioning earlier, defect bonds. They did away with that, I think, back in 2017.
Okay.
The city has made the choice to not allow performance bonds anymore because with the reason being that if you allow a developer to record a final plat prior to the infrastructure being finished, you can get into some messy situations if they end up defaulting and not being able to put that infrastructure in. But then you have a bunch of lots that are recorded without the infrastructure that is necessary to actually do anything there. So that's a big reason why we went away from performance bonds because we've had issues in the past with some of our infrastructure being completed correctly after final plat approval.
What actually are the city's options then? How do we ensure that some of the developers do not leave an entire neighborhood or development, we know of several, of course, in the lurch?
Yeah, so I mean, if they get it, if they do it to the standards that are required for asphalt, you know, prior to final plat approval, and they get it tested, they get it asphalt core tested and everything else, they get an engineer to stamp it, you know, it meets our requirements at the time of final plat approval. Afterwards, if there are any defects or issues, and you know, say they're building a house and they damage a sidewalk or they damage a section of the curbing, we could have them fix that prior to them getting their CO for that house, which is what we already do now. So,
Can you explain something to me? A performance bond that a builder would put up, there's money available for anything that has to be fixed, correct? So how do we get into trouble if we keep the performance bond until everything is done? I don't understand that.
well, go ahead.
Under the ordinance as it's currently written, the Southport does not allow the developer to bond any infrastructure. They have to install it prior to final plat.
Mr. Lombardi, one reason for that, experience has shown that when a developer gets their plat approved without finishing the work and puts up a performance bond, these surety companies fight like crazy to pay off the bond if the city declares that the work was not done properly or finished. Brunswick County was in litigation for many, many years over several developments because the surety company wouldn't pay. I had a little experience with another town where, you know, we were 4 years down the road and the surety company would not fix the road, so the people who bought the lots, they were there without any of the infrastructure that they thought they were getting. So the way you guys revised the UDO was to protect the property owners so that when the developer got the plat and recorded that, they can't sell a lot till they record the final plat, but they can't record the final plat until all the work was done up to standards. And that was done to protect the lot owners and to keep the city from having to, you know, spend years in trying to get the work done. Because a lot of developers, once they sold the lots, I don't know if you're familiar with down at Ocean, I think one down in the Holden Beach area, once they sold the lots, they just left. They didn't care what happened with the surety bond or not. And this is to avoid that, to make sure at least when the lots are sold that everything has been installed and that the engineers have approved it and it's up to all standards at that time.
Any comments from the public? Any further questions or comments from the board?
And also, as Thomas said, if you can find or have evidence of who damaged the road, like maybe a large dump truck or whoever, we have an ordinance that allows you to proceed against them. Okay.
I guess the city of Southport is going to have to really have somebody out there that knows what they're doing to make sure the road is put in correctly. And not have somebody go when it's all finished and say, okay.
Yeah, that engineer certification is going to be very, very important. You know, that they certify that it's up to all your standards with all the base and everything, as well as for, you know, the sewer and the water lines and everything.
Infrastructure.
That's right.
Okay.
Which, if I might add, is another good reason why we should hire a civil engineer on staff, which is a proposal that the city manager has brought forward to us.
Anyone else? Any further comments or questions from the board or the public?
I have a question. Do we need to make a motion on this today?
I was getting ready to,
I'm sorry?
I will close our public hearing, and then I will ask for a motion. Yes, in answer to your question. I hereby close the public hearing on the text amendment, UDO updates, 160D, and I will entertain a motion to adopt.
I'd like to make the
Motion
motion.
by Alderman Sharkey.
Yes, sir. I'd like to make the motion that we adopt the statement of consistency concerning these revisions, and that we also pass the ordinance to amend the UDO as it's been written today.
Is there a second? Second by Mayor Pro Tem. Any further discussion?
I have a question. Are we actually, do we really have a choice about adopting this? I mean, what we're doing is coming into conformity with state law, right? So we really don't have a choice.
Well, we're accepting a revision that is, everyone has agreed upon and is accepting, is my understanding, making it uniform language and that type thing. Is that correct? Yes, sir.
So this is just a pro forma vote, right? I'm done.
Okay. All right. Any further discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Okay, thank you. Motion carried. Thank you. Thank you, gentlemen. Appreciate that. Item 4. This is a resolution clarifying the intent of the Alderman stipend, and I will read that.
I'll make a motion to adopt the resolution.
That's perfect. Thank you. And basically, all this does is it qualifies that what the stipend is for. It's not just for purchase of health insurance, and this was done in 2018, and it was increased to $1,000 a month. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Alderman Davis. Any further discussion on the resolution to clarify the intent of the Board of Aldermen compensation? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carried. Thank you. Okay. Item 5, letter of support and resolution in support of the Gullah Geechee Trails project. The board received an in-depth presentation last month, and I will call on City Manager Mr. Hargrove.
Thank you, Mayor. It's the resolution by the City of Southport in support for the proposed Gullah Geechee Cultural Heritage Multi-Use Greenway and Blueway Trail. Whereas the Gullah Geechee Cultural Heritage Corridor is a national heritage area, and it was established by the U.S. Congress to recognize the unique culture of the Gullah Geechee people who have traditionally resided in the coastal areas in the Sea Islands of North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, and Florida, from Pender County, North Carolina to St. Johns County, Florida. And whereas with an estimated 50 to 75% of the growth and development in the southeastern United States during the next 30 years is projected to occur along the coastal plain, many traditional southern communities like the City of Southport encourage the preservation of historical and cultural identity while enhancing environmental qualities that create opportunities for the active, healthy lifestyles and sense of place. And whereas the proposed concept of a Gullah Geechee Cultural Heritage Corridor multi-use greenway, blueway trail would provide improved bicycle and pedestrian infrastructure, promote physical health, provide greater land and water connectivity as the trail system melds into the greater regional network of greenways, blueways, and trails. And whereas the City of Southport aims to improve pedestrian safety, provide safe and convenient access to and within the City of Southport, stimulate tourism and economic development, encourage an active and healthy lifestyle, enhance the overall quality of life, and whereas it is the City of Southport's vision to maintain the quality of life for its citizens and visitors by enhancing development, identifying and protecting natural resources, encouraging economic growth, and providing new community facilities. And whereas the proposed concept of the Gullah Geechee Cultural Heritage Corridor Multi-Use Greenway Blueway Trail ties into other park areas in the City of Southport and links the city to the East Coast Greenway. And whereas the proposed concept of the trail promotes physical health, creates economic growth, provides greater bike pedestrian opportunities, highlights regional, environmental, cultural, and historical assets, and whereas the proposed trail is a unique approach to celebrating the cultural and historical values of this community and of the coastal region because it integrates historical, cultural, environmental, and economic values into functional use. Therefore, be it resolved that the City of Southport hereby adopts this resolution supporting the proposed concept of a Gullah Geechee Cultural Heritage Corridor Multi-Use Greenway Blueway Trail, adopted this 13th day of May 2021 by the Honorable Joseph P. Hayden, Medical Doctor, Mayor, City of Southport.
All right, thank you, Mr. Hargrove. Certainly a very worthy resolution to support, and so I will entertain a motion. Mr. Spencer, second by Mayor Pro Tem. Any further discussion on the resolution to support? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, motion carried. Thank you, and thank you again, Mr. Hargrove, for reading that. Item 6, appointment of city alternate for a Board of Adjustment. There were 3 applicants, and you have them in your packet, and we appreciate the willingness of these citizens to serve, and we thank all who serve on city boards. So I'll call on Alderman Lombardi.
As the mayor stated, we had 3 candidates were interviewed for a city alternate position on the Board of Adjustments. All 3 were highly qualified for the position and difficult to make a choice. However, after careful consideration, Jason Robbins was chosen and is presented to the board for consideration.
We'll have is that considered a motion that he made, or can we use this? You making a motion there, sir?
Yes.
Okay. All right, a motion by Mr. Lombardi for Mr. Jason Robbins to be the city alternate for the Board of Adjustment. Is there a second? Second by Mr. Allen. Any further discussion?
Just a question. Considering that one of the other applicants actually had previous experience on a planning board and a Board of Adjustment in another locality, can you say why the person that you selected had better qualifications than that individual?
I don't know if I can say that. There was a lot of discussion. There was 3 of us who interviewed. And they just thought that Jason was the best pick for it. The other 2, that's why I'm saying it was a difficult thing. But that was the decision. I can't tell you exactly why. It's all 3 of them were very qualified.
Is there any consideration to the fact that had any of them served on previous city committees, and had any of them applied for the planning board or the Board of Adjustment previously?
Yes, one anyway had applied. But again, that's the decision and that's the recommendation.
Any further discussion? It is difficult to choose one candidate, but that's why we ask them to keep applying and keep serving the city in any capacity that they can, because positions open up every year. And so again, we appreciate everyone who applies, and we hope they will continue to do so and continue to volunteer for our city. Again, any further discussion? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Motion carried. Thank you. Congratulations, Mr. Robbins. Thank you for your service. Item 7, Basin update. This is an update. It's information only. No decisions or votes this evening. We'll at some point have a public meeting on the Yacht Basin to look at our options and what the that committee has recommended. So I will call on Mayor Pro Tem, and who has been promoting this along with Alderman John Allen. So thank you.
Mayor, we will be probably wanting to move a couple of these items on to the planning board for review and consideration and recommendations. But to begin with, the Yacht Basin Overlay District Committee, I'd like to start with thanking again all of the participants of the committee: Craig Blanks, Jim Cherico, Sue Hodgen, Eric Lapala, Maureen Meehan, Gustavo Mabelli, Robert Potter, Paul Swenson, and of course our city planner, Thomas Lloyd. And then the first of 5 final recommendations began with currently the UDO prevents utilizing property zone residential to be used for parking. The establishment of a Yacht Basin parking overlay district could allow off-site parking on the vacant residentially zoned lots in the block bound by Moore, Bay, Caswell, and Yacht Basin Drive without changing the underlying zoning. The parking overlay district should also include standards that mitigate potential impacts to adjacent existing residential properties, including landscape requirements and surface requirements and maintenance of the landscape requirements and stormwater impact mitigation. So this was recommended by the Overlay Committee. The second is to establish a local historic commission. The committee agreed that much of the historic character of the Yacht Basin area is created by the existing unique structures that do not meet FEMA's currently designated Coastal A flood zoning requirements. The current FEMA flood zone designation in the Yacht Basin area requires structures to be built to VE standards up on pilings. The establishment of a local historic commission will be required to ensure that if the existing structures sustain storm damage, they could be rebuilt with an exemption to the FEMA standards and retain their historic character. The committee acknowledged the Yacht Basin is part of a larger area that should be considered as the city's historic district and afforded protections that will preserve the community's historic character. The third recommendation was to continue to maintain the open space district zoning within the marsh areas. The committee agreed that the open space district zoning in and around the Yacht Basin of the historic character of the community at large. Additionally, the committee recognized that Southport's comprehensive plan identified the importance of the marshes, stating as a core value the need to protect the city's shoreline vistas. And the open space district zoning was established in the 1980s to preserve and protect these marsh areas. The fourth recommendation was for the city to consider establishing paid parking to help fund needed infrastructure improvements. The committee agreed that paid parking revenue generated by non-residents could help fund needed infrastructure improvements, and a paid parking policy should include a citywide approach, not just the Yacht Basin. And finally, the committee acknowledged that the Yacht Basin's rich history with the Yacht Basin includes commercial fishing, boat building, pilots, and much more, and recommended that the city's Department of Communication and Tourism consider ways to expand within the Yacht Basin area historical marker signage, similar to the signage located in other areas around town. And if anybody has any questions.
What would be the next step, Mayor Pro Tem?
The next step, if there's no further questions or discussion, I'd like to make a motion that we direct the planning board to consider the following recommendations of the Yacht Basin Overlay District Committee. First is to study the potential establishment of a Yacht Basin Parking Overlay District, and also the establishment of a local historic commission. So that would be the recommendation to the planning board, that they take up those two issues for further discussion. And also, I'd like to make a motion that we forward the recommendation regarding the addition of future historical signage in the Yacht Basin area to the city's Department of Communication and Tourism for their consideration and for them to look at how that might best be implemented. And also, this is not part of the, well, I'll say this afterwards. So that's the, I've got something else to add, but it's not related to the resolution. So.
We have a motion to forward these three items to the Planning Board, the Yacht Basin Parking Overlay District, establishing local historic commission, and consider the addition of historical marker signage to inform the public.
Well, and the signage would go to the city's Communication and Tourism Department.
Communications, yes, thank you. Is there a second? Second by Mayor Pro Tem. Any further discussion? Okay. All in favor? Okay. Any opposed? Motion carried. Thank you.
And then finally, just one last item that's coming out of this work of this great committee. Last month, of course, we discussed the committee's recommendations for pedestrian corridor and traffic flow plan in the Yacht Basin area. Because we're now in the high season, tourist season, will not be able to disrupt the area with the proposed improvements until the fall, and we will have a special public meeting to discuss those plans before final decisions are made concerning those improvements down there. So that's just kind of put that on everybody's radar and know that's coming up.
Okay. Alderman.
To just ask a question, are there any things or any items that are maybe part of the option A or B, but are things that the police department feels is critical this summer that could be implemented without a public hearing? I'm just checking in, I think.
Yes, and I thank you for bringing that up, because I failed to say that. Yeah, there are some signage and marking things that are being done down there to try to, in the short run, clarify and make the area safer. Yes.
The Department of Tourism and Communication has put up signage, especially down at Moore Street, to make sure that the traffic pattern goes in the correct direction. And I believe that it is improved that with those new signs down there. So we did that about probably a month ago. So we'll keep doing whatever things we can to keep the Yacht Basin safe and enjoyable for this summer, and it will be probably in 2022 after our tourist season and that type of thing, that we'll be able to implement some of the plans that come out of the planning board in this regard. So anyway, thank you for that. Item 8 is to set a public hearing for fiscal year 21-22 budget. It's been recommended that we schedule this public hearing for our next regular Board of Aldermen meeting, June 10th, 2021, if that's agreeable to all the board members. Okay, I'll entertain a motion for that. Okay, motion by Mayor Pro Tem, second by Mr. Allen, that we will have the public hearing on the budget at our regular Board of Aldermen meeting on June 10th. All in favor? Motion carried. Thank you. Okay, item 9, the capital project ordinance. You have that in your packet, and this will be for the next fiscal year. It's a list of the authorized projects, in a lot of road repair, and that you've heard about, and you know the list, and Bay Street, Brunswick Street. So anyway, I will call on Finance Officer Melanie Trexler for this capital projects ordinance. Thank you, Ms. Trexler.
Good afternoon. So I don't have much to say about this. We talked about it extensively in several workshops this past 10 days. So I'll entertain any questions. We felt like that we were trying to leave this project ordinance kind of open so that we could add projects or add revenue, you know, to do additional other projects as we see or as you see that need to be added along.
Melanie, for the benefit of people that are watching this at home, will you just real quickly read the list of the projects that are authorized in the ordinance?
Sure.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Bay Street Road and Sidewalk Repair, Erosion Control Project on Brunswick Street, Road Repairs, House Street Sidewalk Project, Kingsley Pier, Stormwater Project, Yacht Basin Pedestrian Corridor, Kayak Launch, a siding for City Hall, and other capital projects.
Thank you. I think that's an excellent list. Everyone worked hard to generate this and to generate the budget, and I appreciate that. And Ms. Trexler, you and your staff, and Board of Aldermen, City Manager, for getting us to this point. So I will entertain a motion about the capital projects ordinance. Okay, Mr. Allen, second by Mr. Lombardi. Any further discussion? Okay, all in favor? Fine, motion carried. Thank you. Look forward to the public hearing on June 10th. Thank you. Okay, next item on our agenda, committee reports. Mr. Allen? Okay. Mr. Spencer? Alderman Sharkey? Okay. Madam Lowe Davis? Lowe Davis, any committee reports?
Was on weather earlier this week for a couple of days, and so I'm asking that Alderman Mosteller report on the Forestry Committee.
The Forestry Committee, really, they did not have a quorum, so it was just a planning session and discussion about a future, and they were they were supportive of the resolution against the tree ordinance legislation.
Yes, at the April meeting of the Beautification Committee, we had election of officers for 21-22 as follows. Lynn Guyman as chairman, Rob Thatcher as vice chair, Karen Pasquale as secretary, and Marie Lother as treasurer. We also, at our last cleanup, we had over 20 volunteers, of which 7 were students. They did a lot of staining, and they're really enthused, and we're really lucky to have them. But we accomplished staining and weeding and mulching in various areas around the city. And that's it.
Thank you. Next item is the manager's report. Oh, I'm sorry.
Wait a minute,
Oh.
I have some committee reports.
Yes, thank you,
Sorry.
Mayor Pro Tem. Sorry.
That's okay, that's all good. The Parks and Recreation Committee report. Parks and Recreation master plan must be updated every 5 years, and the coming year's budget includes updating the master plan. This is an important and necessary tool to aid in our success when we compete for grants. The Parks and Recreation Master Plan update process will include public meetings, citizen questionnaires and interviews and focus groups. Please plan to participate. This will help determine many of the city's future goals and projects. Our newest park, Taylor Field, is beginning the next phase in the construction process. The site plan has been finalized, and the stormwater prep and grading will begin shortly. This project has an expected completion date of October. Summer is indeed here, on its way, and it's almost here. The Parks and Recreation Department and Tourism Departments, in partnership with DSI, are sponsoring the 2021 Southport Summer Series, Thursdays in the Park series. Starting June 3rd till September, weather permitting, concerts will be held in Franklin Square every Thursday evening, except, of course, the second Thursday of the month. So others can attend the Aldermen meeting. And the movie series will be returning to the Garrison Lawn. Please mark calendars for Friday, June 11th. The first movie this year will be Dr. Dolittle. As a reminder, the Planning Board will meet next Thursday at 6 p.m. here in the Community Building. In addition to other agenda items, the committee will be bringing recommendations and questions for the full Planning Board to consider regarding a potential short-term rental ordinance. Citizen input is important. By way of background, the need for a short-term rental policy was first identified over 4 years ago at the 2018 Board of Aldermen's annual planning retreat. The need for a short-term rental policy was again identified at the 2020 retreat and then assigned to the Planning Board to consider possible UDO updates. After the 2018 retreat, another alderman and I did some work on these issues, and I shared that data with the current committee. They have completed their research and will be presenting recommendations for discussion and consideration at the Planning Board's meeting next Thursday. Then the Streetlight Committee. Recently, there have been a lot of questions about the city streetlight policy, and the Streetlight Committee is continuing to meet and work on the policy update recommendations that will be brought to the board for consideration with opportunities for public comment. In the meantime, citizens may reach out to Alderman Sharkey, Alderman Davis, or myself with any questions concerning the streetlight policy. That's all I got.
Excellent reports. Thank you. I apologize for almost eliminating that information. So thank you. Manager's report. Mr. Hargrove.
Thank you, Mayor. I only have a few items this evening. First of all, you can see in a handout I gave you earlier, we're starting to get reimbursements from Fema that include Dorian, Florence, and Isaias. I'm really excited about that because that helps us with our fund balance this year. Secondly, I'd just like to touch briefly on the budget. We're doing really well. We're closing it down. Most departments should have about 7% of their budget left. Most departments are trending above that right now, so budget-wise, we're doing well. I do have a bit of troubling news to share with you this evening. I have received information from the county on the sewer plant, the sewer expansion that we're having to pay for, and unfortunately, the pricing that we were looking at is from 2018, and as a result of the pandemic, the booming economy, and just the fact that it was 3 years ago, it does look like there's going to be a price increase for the expansion to allow our capacity into the county system. The mayor and I have a meeting tomorrow at 1 o'clock with W.K. Dixon that will get a better idea, a little more accurate accounting of what that's going to cost. I fully anticipate a 20% increase. That's all I have for this evening. Great news, huh?
I hope Melanie wasn't listening to that. That's all I have to say.
No, I'm not, I went to South Brunswick math, but that's like $5, $6 million.
Yeah. Yes, that is correct. So,
Home facility doesn't sound so bad.
well, thank you, Mr. Hargrove, for the update and the hard work that all of y'all did on the budget, and we will we'll see what it develops tomorrow. Next up, mayor's comments. I just have a few. Get a copy of our state. Thank you for putting this on the desk. We were at Walgreens, and I saw this beautiful photograph of this hummingbird, and it says special tribute to NC nurses. As you know, sometimes the bottom is covered, so I didn't see that Southport was in it initially. But this is a great magazine. If you don't get it every month, go out and get it or subscribe to it. But anyway, I appreciate you making a copy for all of us to look at. And Southport certainly looks beautiful on paper, but even more so in person. So thank you for that copy. City Dock, if you've not been on it, I highly recommend going down there. The view, the breeze, the sunset is spectacular. COVID-19, the metrics are moving in the right direction, except there are excess vaccines. Take your best shot and encourage your family and friends to do so. Encourage everyone to get one. Children ages 12 and older, Pfizer has approved it. And our nephew George rolled up his sleeve yesterday. He just turned 12, so he's immunized now. So this is one more step by immunizing this cohort that we get towards herd immunity. The plan is to lift the city state of emergency after Labor Day, as long as we see no spike in cases. So I'm very pleased in the direction we're going. I want to explain, though, the ideal metrics for this country to return to normal, meaning prior to the pandemic, if we can think back that far, is no more than 1,000 cases per day and no more than 100 deaths per day. Well, how do we know this? Because that's what's tolerated during a general flu season. So these are the numbers that we hope to achieve, but we may not, but this is what we're hoping for. Remember, Southport is open, restaurants and businesses are doing well, and continue to shop and dine local. Construction, House Street Sewer Project, they're now at Owen Street. So progress is being made, and I want to thank our citizens and our businesses for their patience. I mean, this is a long, drawn-out process, and I appreciate that. The city is working on access and detours, and the city manager, Tom Stanley, and I and the head of the construction company, 274, we met at the hospital recently with the administration and the officials there, and we discussed how to mitigate disruption of their services, the EMS, and supplies to the hospital when the sewer is on their block. So we are being as proactive as we can, and we'll continue to do so, and appreciate the citizens letting us know where problems arise, and the businesses as well. Community. I met via Zoom with the Lions Club. It's such a great organization, national, and I did not know this, but it's the world's largest service club organization. It was founded in 1917, and they're best known for fighting blindness. But they do much more. They are a humanitarian organization, and their motto is, "We serve." So in Southport, the Lions Club supports the schools, New Hope Clinic, the local library, as well as promoting and improving eye health. They are well known for their boat raffle. Their 75th anniversary is approaching and is scheduled for celebration on September 25th, 2021. They specifically asked me what they could do for the city, and I just told them to continue the good work in the community that they were doing, including the displaying of the American flag on House Street. So it's a great organization, and it was a pleasure to meet with them. Cash. As you know, the budget is finalized. Southport is in excellent position financially. No increase in property taxes at this time, so we're grateful for that. And you've seen the checks for reimbursement, so that is all going well. Congratulations to newly appointed Public Information Officer, Lisa Anderson. congratulations. I appreciate all that you and Randy do for the city and what you do for me as mayor in getting our message out. Do it through the newsletter with Sharon Venus, through our mayor updates, Southport Connected. I mean, we're just grateful for all that you're doing, and congratulations on this, and just continue to follow Randy's lead like we all do, right? And last, continued remembrance, Memorial Day, for those men and women who gave the ultimate sacrifice in defense of this country for our liberty and freedom that we are all enjoying. So remember our military and enjoy this holiday weekend with your family and friends. So thank you. Next are staff reports. They're in your packet. Any updates from staff? Okay. All right, thank you. And next will be board comments. Mr. Allen.
Thank you, Mayor. I would like to just reflect for a moment on the events of the past year and a half. It's been an eventful period of time, obviously. I'm not doing this as a way of patting the aldermen on our collective backs, but instead on making sure our fellow citizens know all the good things that are happening in our city. We've touched on a lot of these tonight and in other meetings, I think, but I was thinking about it, and when you stop and kind of put them all together and reflect on it, it's really amazing what has been accomplished in the last 18 months. The mayor's column in yesterday's Port Pilot's far more complete and eloquent than what I can do, but as I reflect on the past 18 months, I want to again thank the mayor for his outstanding leadership and hard work. Southport is indeed fortunate to have Dr. Hatem as our mayor. Just a few of the good things that have been accomplished in the past 18 months: successfully navigating the COVID pandemic, updating our Unified Development Ordinance, securing the city's long-term wastewater treatment needs, dealing with the aftermath of Hurricane Isaias, and obtaining hundreds of thousands of dollars in Fema funds to assist with that, rebuilding the city dock, beginning work on the new Taylor Field Park, hiring a new city manager, who, by the way, I'd like to also publicly acknowledge and thank for his outstanding work, particularly in regards to getting the Fema reimbursements. That's almost $1 million worth of reimbursements that we've gotten, some of them back as far as Hurricane Florence. We've created and implemented a capital improvement fund to provide funding for street repairs, pedestrian safety enhancements at the Yacht Basin, a kayak launch at the former wastewater treatment plant, and other needed capital improvements that, frankly, some of those have been talked about for years, and we're finally seeing them come to fruition. And finally, a proposed budget for fiscal year 2021-2022 that does all this with no tax increase. I'm extremely proud of what this board, our manager, and all our city employees have accomplished for the citizens of Southport over the past 18 months, and I just wanted to point all that out. Thank you.
Very well said. Thank you, Alderman Allen. That is a great summary, much better than I could do. So thank you. Mr. Spencer.
Seems like with all the proclamations, it's Thanksgiving in May. I've heard of Christmas in July, but I think it was Thanksgiving. I have to add one more. It's not an official proclamation, but I want to appreciate the teachers who have got us through the pandemic, educators who have nurtured our children. I was honored and proud to see Miss Anderson, Lisa Anderson, represent. I know her as Lisa Castor. She is a Southport alumni and a homegrown native. I'm proud to see her leading the nursing. And also need to congratulate our local barber who saved a life this week. We had a gentleman who had a problem in Mr. Hewitt's barbershop. And with his military and police experience, he was able to administer some kind of life-saving technique until the paramedics could get there. So I'm proud that he has saved one life last week. And want to congratulate him on his valiant effort. On parking, we've got the area on the 400, 500 block of Atlantic Avenue that we put signs out. I would like to look further into what the dimensions of that property would be and pursue sort of fine-tuning that, coming up with an estimate of what it would cost to possibly pave and create a parking zone in that area. You had mentioned the parking deck, but I'd like to use some of the space that we're really not taking advantage of. So I would like to look into that. And otherwise, thank everybody for your hard work.
Sharkey?
Yes, I'm pleased that we passed resolutions this evening that address the proposed bills that could limit the city's ability to have its own tree ordinance, and also the ability to control our zoning and have a category of single family and not everything have to be multifamily. We need to be aware, though, that this is just the tip of the iceberg as far as what's going on at the General Assembly in regards to bills being introduced that would eliminate local ability to control how they approve zoning, how their appearances are, whether or not they can charge development service fees, whether or not they can annex because somebody requests services, whether or not you can require a new development to provide its own roads. There is some serious proposals and being introduced as bills that will take that could take that authority away from us as a locality. So we need to be aware that there's much more going on from people that believe that we shouldn't have that authority and that it all should be dictated at the state level and that each community is the same and that each community can be ruled with the same kind of zoning and appearance and performance standards. So we need to be aware of those things and be vocal and express our concerns to legislators when appropriate. Also, I also want to commend Mr. Hewitt also. Good save. That's considered a save. Good job. But I also want to pay compliment to David Fox in another way. David Fox, who's retiring as the Public Services Director, is more than just an excellent employee. David and his wife, Debbie, are extremely, extremely kind people. They have been taking care of a retired city employee for quite a while now. And she has become, very frail and medically incapable of being alone. And because she has no family here in Southport or even in the state that she could rely on to take care of her, they've been taking care of her now for several years. And that just shows the goodness and the kindness and what kind of person he is. And I just want to thank him for that.
Very well said. Thank you, Alderman Sharkey. Lo Davis.
Thank you. I just have three things. First, some very, very good news. The John Smith Cemetery. I'm sure you all know where it is in case the public doesn't. It's on Leonard Street, and it is the African American cemetery, and it dates back to plantation days. And among other things, it will be part of the Gullah Geechee Trail when that's all officially done. I'm on the board of the John Smith Cemetery Foundation, and we got extremely good news this week, which is that we are this close to getting National Historic Register status. This is a very tedious and document-heavy process that's been going on for several years, but we're right at the point of getting state historic register approval, which then pretty much assures national. So stay tuned. I'll tell you how that went next month. More good news, the fishermen have returned to the dock. If we had any doubt that it was a good idea to get the dock back in place, then I want you to know, since I'm blessed to live where I can keep an eye on the dock all the time. And early in the morning, people are out there fishing. People probably are there fishing right now, if it's not all mud underneath it. And finally, to add to Alderman Allen's list of achievements in the last 18 months, we have made just quantum leaps in transparency. The very fact that this is being recorded, people can be sitting at home right now, watching and listening to what we're doing, and if they're not at home and can't do it, they can look at it because it's being recorded, and you can go back and look at old meetings. We don't limit the amount of time people have for public input. We're extremely open, I think, and I cannot think of another municipality or government that does as much as we're doing for transparency. So thank you all. That's it from me.
Thank you. Excellent comments. Mr. Lombardi.
I can't add much to what everybody said. However, I was really disappointed in that change in the UDO and the regulations, and I hope that that Thomas could work on something to guarantee that we get roads that are in great shape and we don't have to go fixing them a year later.
Point. Thank you. That's been a big problem at times. Mayor Pro Tem Karen Mosteller.
Thank you. Mayor, I've got just a couple of things. The June 1, 2021 deadline to take advantage of the North Carolina Homestead Act Property Tax Relief Program in the 2021 tax year is quickly approaching. This is a really good program. If you or anyone you know is 65 years or older, owns their own home, and it's their permanent residence, and their 2020 household income was less than $31,500, they can file an application to reduce their property tax by 50%. And this doesn't require a payback or anything. This will reduce both the 2021 county and city property tax by 50%. Also, for those who qualify, there are 2 other tax relief programs available with an exemption for disabled veterans and a tax deferment program for higher income. The Brunswick County Tax Office can help facilitate the application process over the phone. You can call the general number, which is 910-253-2803, and mention the tax relief program, and the call will get routed to the tax department for help completing the application process. If you have access to the internet, you can find the complete information on the Brunswick County website under Application for Tax Relief Form, and you can also call our Deputy City Clerk, Tanya Shannon, here in Southport at City Hall for help to access the program information. So I hope everyone that's listening can help get the word out. And again, if you qualify to get this tax relief, it is a simple process, but the application must be completed and delivered to the Brunswick County Tax Office by June 1 in order to reduce your property taxes by 50% for the 2021 tax year. So that's important, and June 1 is the deadline. And several people have mentioned the city dock. I wanted to say, as we celebrate the reopening of the city dock, it is ultimately the citizens of Southport and their unwavering recognition that the city dock is an important and valuable community asset that made this possible. I want to acknowledge that several citizens donated money to demonstrate their commitment to this project. The citizens of Southport created the energy that was needed for city staff and the board to persevere and make it possible for future generations to have public access in the Yacht Basin. So I am very grateful to be part of this community of neighbors. And that's all I have.
Great, thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Next on the agenda is item I, and this is a closed session. And I'll entertain a motion to go into closed session so we can consult with our city attorney.
So moved.
Is there a second? Okay, second, Alderman Sharkey. All in favor? Okay, we will now go into closed session. Thank you. Okay. I will entertain a motion to go out of closed session. Okay. Alderman Sharkey, second by Mayor Pro Tem and Alderman John Allen. I would like to read a statement for the record in terms of the results of our closed session. We met with our city attorney in closed session to discuss a proposed settlement in the lawsuit filed by Plantation Building of Wilmington Incorporated against the city on April 1st, 2019 for the recovery of unlawful impact fees collected by the city. A mediation was held on May 6, 2021, wherein the attorneys for the parties, along with the Superior Court mediator, discussed settlement of the case. After discussion of a proposed settlement with the city attorney and city manager, the Board of Aldermen has agreed to settle the lawsuit by paying the total amount of $310,000 in complete accord and satisfaction of the lawsuit. The board has authorized the mayor to execute the settlement agreement on behalf of the city. Any further comments or questions about this? Okay. At least we have that behind us, and we certainly move forward. Next item, I will thank you all for being here tonight, for your patience, and for your hard work as always. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Mr. Lombardi, second by Mayor Pro Tem and everyone else in unison, I'm sure. All in favor? Meeting adjourned. Thank you.